This is episode 156 of the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast. So today, me, Chris Rickenbaugh, and I am going to be talking about two big lessons after a absolute disaster of a flip that I just got done completing. Not quite over yet, so I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty, but I do want to be able to break down, two of the big lessons that I've learned from this. But if you've never listened to this show before, this is the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast, where I, Chris Rickenbaugh, am a little over a year into flipping houses, and I'm using this channel and social media and the podcast to be able to document my journey in real estate and business. And I also talk a little bit about travel hacking and personal finance. You can find me over on TikTok and Instagram at chris.rickenbaugh. So that's chris.REIChenbach. So go follow me there and keep up to date with what I'm doing every day, what I'm learning, and walking my flip. So, and also, if you're listening to this podcast, stay right where you are. And you can also listen on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Podbean, and now Amazon Music. So let's hop into the topic today. So, one of the, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of exactly what's going on, but I did want to talk about two of the big lessons that I'm really seeing on all of my things, and a couple of the mistakes that I made. So number one is going to be tracking all receipts. So this is something that I did a really good job of. So any receipt, any dollar that was spent on this project was logged by me. So I said, hey, if you guys are spending or going to Lowe's, make sure you're sending a receipt to me of exactly what was spent. So we did a great job. And the actual problem is with the problem person, they didn't send over those receipts to me. So there are no logged receipts from them. And that is causing a big problem. But when it comes to disputes, what you can do is you can go back through all of these receipts, and then I match it up with my Google spreadsheet where I'm logging all of these business expenses, logging the draw fees and the draws from the hard money lender. So I can easily go right back in. I can document it and show, line for line, this is exactly what we've spent, and it matches up on both of these spreadsheets. So this really just helps in disputes because, once you get to the end of the project, you can see exactly what you've spent on materials, what you've spent on labor, and it really helps narrow it down and gives you some data so that, once you're doing more flips, you're able to see, okay, this is what this house needed. So I spent a little bit more on this, and you can get down to the nitty gritty on details because that's going to be able to help you be more efficient. And that's what I'm really seeing right now. So, it's really, really tough, but I did a really good job of tracking those receipts. So, I don't really have a whole lot of questions exactly to where and how the money was spent. So, number two is going to be the really, really big one. And this is the mistake that I made, that everything needs to be in writing. So, this really applies to partnerships and everything before you start the project. Now, this was something that, I thought about doing, and, I trusted the person that they were going to be able to do the right thing. But even if you trust the person, you need to be able to get everything in writing, how the project's going to be, performed, who's going to be doing what, and how you're going to be able to hold accountable. And then really what happens when things go wrong, because all of these, agreements that you're signing, they're really for disagreements. And that's something that is repeated and repeated and repeated while talking about partnerships. And, it's something to listen to it, but it's another thing to actually live it. So, this was one of my really big mistakes here, and I'm really paying the price for it. And you can bet I will definitely be getting everything in writing from here on in the future, working with anybody, contractors, partners, private money lenders. And the funny thing is, I actually do that with all of my private money lenders. So one of the disputes in this flip is, what is the money that is owed? It's like, okay, well, I didn't make the deal with you. You did this with somebody else who was going to be managing the project. You sent the money to me. So now when you're requesting a 100% return, which say if you were investing $50,000 in a deal, a 20% return would be $10,000. So a 100% return is putting in 50 and getting out 100. So that's crazy. Like, nobody is getting those type of returns. Even right around 10 to 12% is still a lot. So normally what I've been doing is about 15%. And when I was just getting started on my first one or two, I would do 20%. Or in special cases, I do that. But for my normal deal, since I have a proof of concept, it's easier for me to start looking, hey, I can go down, 12 to 15, and they're like, okay, they feel safe with their money, they know they're going to be able to get it back with that return, but all of those details are lined in a promissory note. So that is what I do for all of my private money lenders. And so when this happened, there was none of that writing because it was through somebody else to me. So I didn't look at this as one of my lenders. I looked at it as this other person who brought in the lender who was going to be running the deal. And my mistake was I didn't get all of that stuff in writing. So if it ever comes to the court, there's nowhere for that to be found. But there's also nowhere to be found on what type of returns, whether that's good or bad. It's really all bad because you never got it in writing to be able to prove it. So, that's really, really two big lessons that I've learned after this disaster. So, still working through it, not going to be able to give all of the details, and maybe I never will be able to, but I want to be able to document exactly what I'm going through. So I want to be as vague as possible, but highlight on those really two big key details that, you're tracking all the receipts, and everything partnership-wise needs to be detailed and outlined in writing on a JV partnership or however you choose to do it, but it needs to be in writing so that if you ever do have disagreements, you can look right back to that sheet and then you can solve it right there. So that's what I want to leave you on today. Just a quick, quick under 10-minute episode about what I'm learning, what I'm doing in the day in the life. So make sure to check back in on Friday for another episode of the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast. But thank you so much for tuning in to episode 156, and I will see you on Friday.